Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Jujutsu Kaisen. Unlock the 8 secret arts at the start. Chapter 36. It seems that there is no slightest interest in the same kind that Gojo Satoru talks about. But who would have thought that things are impermanent? Shayuji has never imagined that such a name randomly mentioned by Gojo will bring him much change in the future. But this is all for later. Inside the supermarket, the family members of the deceased were crying, and Yaga Masamiki's expression became more gloomy. If he could arrive sooner, maybe these people would not die. But his heart knew that all this was impossible. Ryuiki was able to solve the super class fast enough, and he almost eliminated the super class without a chance to breathe, but human life is too fragile for the super class. Even the power leaked unintentionally is enough to punish human beings. Even if he was there, he might not be able to do better than Ryuiki. It would be great if he could join the college. That kind of talent will definitely become stronger in the college. Only when the strength of the Jujutsu division continues to grow, can these cursed spirits be eliminated the fastest, and the tragic loss of life can be minimized. Yaga Masamiki murmured softly. Gojo Satoru, who walked to him, heard him and patted Masamiki on the shoulder. If you're talking about Zenin Ryuiki, Guy 1, you won't have a dream. He even refused me. You know him. Yaga Masamiki looked at Gojo Satoru in surprise. Of course, we are close friends. When Masamiki heard this, his eyes lit up, his mouth cracked and an ugly smile appeared. Since you are friends, can you? No. I said it, he has already rejected me once. Old man, don't you listen to others. Before Masamiki finished speaking, Gojo Satoru interrupted him. Old man. You call me old man. On Yaga Masamiki's forehead, the veins violently, his big hands clenched, and he waved an iron fist, wanting to teach this little devil who doesn't respect his teacher. Gojo, who has no lower limit technique, would naturally not be hit, and made a grimace, watching Yaga Masamiki's fist hard to get close in front of him. Suddenly, he turned his eyes and looked at the tall building in the distance of the supermarket. The smiley eyes instantly became cold. The corners of his mouth slid a few times, but there was no sound from Chu. I got a deep look at the building. The mouth shaped clearly said 2 words. Missions. Following this look of Gojo. On the opposite building, the man who had been dormant suddenly got up and left without even turning his head. The curse power of his whole body exploded rapidly, for fear that Gojo would appear in front of him in the next second. He is like an embarrassed old dog, walking through the streets and alleys, not daring to appear on the street. If the ghost in the night is normal, after some time, he finally stopped. Came to a pub that was extremely hidden. Why are you so embarrassed? The lady proprietor of the tavern is a very hot blonde woman. She lay on the wine table, setting her body more exquisitely, and the evil is almost gushing out. The man took off his hood and revealed his ugly face. A scar pierced half of his face, making his ugly and dark face even more hideous and terrifying. He leaned against the door of the tavern, pressed close to the wall, and slid down on the floor. The wall was scratched by his sweat, and his whole body was wrapped in cold sweat. Panting like a drowning man. What's the matter with you? Seeing this, the lady boss hurried forward, helped the man up and sat on the high chair. The man took a deep breath. The whole body trembled uncontrollably. I saw Gojo Satoru, and finally I knew why I must get rid of that guy. The man seemed to be caught in a nightmare. Gojo Satoru's pair of heavenly pupils without any emotions, like the might of heaven, were deeply imprinted in his mind, and they could not dissipate for a long time. It's too dangerous. No one can show up next to Gojo Satoru without instructions from an adult. Don't you want to live? The lady boss yelled. Unexpectedly the man was so courageous. Although it's dangerous, I seem to have found an existence that can fight Gojo. The man clenched his fists, resisting the fear in his heart, and his teeth kept shaking. Who is it? Even the adults said that we must avoid the edge. Who can fight that monster? The lady boss looked at the man in disbelief. A touch of color appeared on the man's face. What about giving his life for the great cause of himself and others? Only monsters are fighting against monsters. Jujutsu can infinitely magnify sight and hearing. Within a radius of 10,000 meters, everything can be perceived. I saw a superb existence, whose name is Zenin Ryuiki. He is another monster. Quote. Chapter 37. Impossible. Don't forget. Adult Jujutsu can glimpse the long-term future. Gojo Satoru's pervert is invincible. It is an absolutely irresistible monster. Only an adult can wake up the shadows that existed thousands of years ago. Appears to rival the existence. Together with Sha Yuji, who is a special grade, he will be left behind by Gojo Satoru. No one can resist such a monster in this era. The lady boss couldn't believe what the man said. The adult Jujutsu took them to see the endless future together, and Gojo's godlike figure was deeply planted in her heart. Why do you think I dare to spy on Gojo Satoru? Of course it was the instruction of the adult. Zenin Ryuiki is a monster that did not exist in the past and the future. A demon that can resist Gojo. The man's voice was almost crazy, like a crazy believer. His face was sickly red, and his whole body trembled involuntarily. There was a spark of enthusiasm in his eyes. Only believe in adults is the root of all suffering. Zenin Ryuiki is our chance to kill Gojo Satoru. The lady boss was completely speechless by the man's shock, and stood there blankly. No matter how the man whispered, she didn't respond. In her red eyes, a black nether appeared invisible, and it disappeared in a flash. Yeah, for adults. The man felt the strength of Ryuiki firsthand with his own jujutsu, and also heard Gojo's affirmation of Ryuiki through jujutsu. But he left the most important one. That is, jujutsu resists. He has to perceive that jujutsu can magnify his senses countless times, which is a magical skill for obtaining information. However, Gojo Satoru has a natural command of one of the strongest jujutsus, no lower limits. Single quote. Whenever jujutsu reaches Gojo, he will be aware of it. And no lower limit technique can instantly plant several, infinity, in space. Single quote. In other words, everything a man hears is what Gojo wants the man to hear first. So the man heard that Gojo personally admitted Zenin Ryuiki's strength, but he didn't hear the friendship between the two. He heard that Gojo Satoru told Sha Yuji to be careful of Ryuiki, and he thought to himself that there was an enmity between Ryuiki and Gojo Satoru. I'm going to inform the adults now, no matter what the cost is to win Zenin Ryuiki, as long as that cerebral worm is planted in, we can immediately start our hearts. The man stood up excitedly. No, I'm here, an old male voice slowly sounded. Sudden, the door of the tavern behind him slammed open. A burst of black mist quickly emerged, enveloping the entire tavern layer by layer, and the curse power was like flowing water, and strangely flowing slowly throughout the tavern. Woo! There were bursts of baby crying all around, and black crows circled outside the door of the tavern. The originally cloudless sky was covered by endless ink. Above the dome, it seemed to be covered by a huge curtain. A man covered in black robe appeared at the entrance of the tavern. On his shoulder stood a small black crow. You did a good job this time. I already know where Zenin Ryuiki is. You will be responsible for the next actions, quack. The vicissitudes of life sounded strangely from the crow's mouth. The man called D knelt on the ground with the proprietress, looking at the black-robed man who appeared in front of him frantically. Yes, your lord. I will never let down your trust. Well, very good, very good. The crow combed his feathers, a black curse appeared in the bean-sized bird's eyes, and quickly rushed towards the truth. The speed of the curse was extremely fast, and in a blink of an eye, it was submerged in D's body. Ah! D let out a heart-piercing scream, and the muscles all over his body trembled frantically, swelling in an extremely fast posture, and then shriveled. Like a duck being flooded with water, this process is like hell punishment, causing D's constant bills to scream. The lady boss on the side listened to D's screams. Not only was there no fear at all, but a bit of jealousy appeared on his face. Ah! The man's scream gradually weakened, and finally he let out a sound that was almost moaning. The whole body was covered with black power like ink, and the spirit of the whole person was almost as different as before. Thank you, sir. Dai was delighted to feel his own changes. He can feel that his current strength has doubled, whether it is physical or curse power, it has been greatly increased. From the third level Jujutsu division has reached the second level of apex strength. For the future of mankind, D don't let me down, quack. The crow screamed leisurely. Before the sound fell, the black mist gathered up, swallowing all the figures of D and the boss. I will help you reach the place where Ryuiki is, and then I will rely on you, my child. The endless black mist faded like a tide. Chapter 38. In the tavern, the figure of the proprietress indeed disappeared out of thin air, and the black-robed man was quietly immersed in the black mist, for an unknown period of time. The black robe fluttered slowly. A voice that was far different from the vicissitudes of life sounded. The voice was like the babble of the devil in hell, and it uttered like curse, which made people shudder and noisy. Humans are really stupid. There was a bit of ridicule in that voice and a bit of inexplicable sadness. Click. The door of the tavern was pushed open again. A bastard with red hair on his head walked into the tavern with his head tilted. He raised his head and looked at the man hiding in the black robe. Hey, give Lao Su a glass of wine. The bastard's mouth cracked and sat at the side table. The black-robed man turned his head and faced the gangster. The crow on the shoulder quackled strangely, as if playing some kind of tragic song. You are deaf. Pour wine to Lao Su. Seeing that the man in black actually ignored him, he became furious and drew out a knife and stood up directly, looking at the black-robed man with a fierce face. Base. Ah, what is this? The little bastard screamed suddenly, only to see a black tentacles coming out from under the black robe, rolling the little bastard up. The powerful force gives the gangsters almost no chance to resist. It was rolled up layer by layer, and the tentacles once again tightly blocked the little bastard's mouth. A little bit dragged the bastard into the black robe. The black robe showed a corner, and there seemed to be a huge mouth in it, greedily waiting for his food. Click. The door was closed out of thin air by some force. The tavern was plunged into darkness. Ha ha, ha ha. The sound of chewing slowly sounded, as if something was tasting the food. ... Osaka. Zenin branched out. The old man looked at Yingsen, who was half kneeling in front of him. Unbelievably, his eyes burst open, blue veins rose, and the teacup he was holding was trembling slightly. You say it again. The old man seemed to be unable to believe what he had just heard, and tremblingly stood up from the tatami, and ordered Ying Yi to repeat it. Upon seeing this, Ying Yi hurriedly bowed again and said, the abandoned son of the Zenin family, Zenin Ryuiki, appeared in Lianyuan supermarket at 10:02 a.m. yesterday, and the super cursed spirit was born at 10:30 a.m., at 10:45. Yingsen paused, and the two hands were tightly clasped into a ball, and the joints were white, without even noticing it, and continued. Except for the special grade at 10:45. According to our news, no one assisted Zenin Ryuiki in the whole process, which means that Zenin Ryuiki's strength is at least a first-level jujutsu teacher. Keigaiki didn't expect Zenin Ryuiki's strength to be so tyrannical. He had already made a plan in his heart and could only continue it quietly. First level jujutsu teacher. The old man narrowed his eyes slightly, and he kept muttering in his mouth. He slowly sat on the tatami again, with a hint of glamour at the corners of his mouth. Okay. As expected to have the blood of my Zenin family. If I remember correctly, Zenin Ryuiki is only 16 years old this year, and he awakens jujutsu the day after tomorrow. He has an extremely powerful physical power and has the ultimate mastery of curse power. On the desktop in front of the old man, a pile of thick information suddenly appeared, and Yaga Masamiki and Ieri Shoko's discussion of Ryuiki was recorded verbatim in it. Including Ieri Shoko's retelling of Ryuiki's battles are recorded one by one. Even Jujutsu, the only Jujutsu force in the entire Fuso, like Jujutsu High School, can hardly resist the intelligence system of the Zenin family. This is the enduring power of the family that has been passed down for thousands of years. Refused to join Jujutsu Academy. What is worth joining in such a place of incompetence? The old man's mouth brought a trace of disdain, and the arrogance in his tone could not be concealed anyway. In his eyes, they are nothing more than the toys of those old antiques in Jujutsu world. It's okay to play around, but the real arrogance of Zenin's family is not something they can attract. At this moment, he seems to have forgotten that the arrogant man in his mouth was originally expelled from the house by the so-called Zenin orthodoxy in the name of experience. Keigaiki, send this information to Tokyo and tell Zenin Naobi to let Ryuiki return to Zenin's house by all means. Before the next Ozen competition, I will try my best to train Ryuiki, the junior of Gojo's family. I thought I was going to crush this generation. I didn't expect the heaven to take shelter. My Zenin's house will never die. The old man took a sip of the tea in his hand in excitement. There was no trace of elegance, but like a warrior about to go into battle, revealing a few iron-blooded feelings. This feeling appeared to a thin old man who was extremely abrupt, but unusually harmonious. Yes, elder. The subordinates will go to Tokyo immediately and personally report the matter to the patriarch. Well, it's okay to go there in person. I don't think it's prudent enough for mobile phones or something. The old man nodded and agreed to Kagaiki's proposal. Subordinates set off now. Yingyi clasped his fists and bowed out of the room. He buried his head very low, for fear that the old man would see the crazy killing intent in his eyes. Zenin Ryuiki, do you really think you can climb to the sky in one step? Don't dream too much. A plan emerged in Kagaiki's heart, and the hatred of the brother's death and the jealousy of Ryuiki exploded in his heart. Chapter 39. But Yingyi also did not notice that the old man sitting on the tatami was holding tea. His eyes were like wild beasts, staring closely at his back, as if calling out at any time, tearing the prey to pieces. However, until Yingyi completely disappeared from the room, the old man did not take action. Just sitting quietly on the tatami, her eyes squinted, the tea floating on the table, and the room is beautiful. Vaguely, thousands of mountains and birds rang. Click. The old man put the teacup heavily on the table. There was a muffled noise. Muttered to himself. All right, yes, a good knife always needs a sharpening stone. Before the conference begins, get stronger, Zenin Ryuiki, you have noble blood on your body, don't let me down. Fuso, Tokyo. As the center of the entire Fuso country. Almost half of the population has gathered, making this small city even more crowded. In this golden city, some people tried their best and could not get even a square foot of land in their entire life. Under such high pressure, countless negative emotions were naturally born. And the birth of cursed spirit broke ground from these countless negative emotions. The denser the population, the higher and stronger the quality of cursed spirit. Throughout Tokyo, there are no fewer than 30 registered special class cursed spirits, and countless unregistered special class spirits. It can be said that the people of Tokyo dance on the tip of a knife every day, and if there is only one super violent, then these poor guys will join hands and become the food of the cursed spirit. For cursed spirit, ordinary humans are simply too fragile and small, and they can make them worse than dead without exerting force. If those guys who claim to be jujutsu teachers, they would have destroyed everything and become the real masters of the world. But, because of the existence of those guys, the cursed spirit had to hide in the darkness and linger, just because the three mountains-like names in the center of Tokyo are deeply pressed on all the cursed spirits. No. Even the curse masters, who do no evil, shivered under the three names, and did not dare to touch their edge. Originally, there was a delicate balance between cursed spirit, curse and jujutsu, which lasted for hundreds of years. But with the birth of the monster of the Gojo family among the three families of Yu, everything has been changed. When he was born, the balance of the world was broken by him alone. The curse masters are dormant in the darkness, and the advanced cursed spirit with wisdom is hidden in a deeper gloom. And at the moment, this man, who can affect the entire jujutsu world with every move, stands under a towering old tree. Around, countless wind chimes rang sweetly. The old trees are surrounded by slender red threads. The red threads are like blood, with a bit of weirdness and a bit of peace. This sense of contradiction continues to surround the old tree. From nothing to nothing, and from nothing to nothing. Sometimes the red line appears, sometimes dissipates. With the sound of the wind chimes, it kept changing in front of Gojo Satoru's eyes. Gojo Satoru sat on the ground, eating the latest version of the cake. Looking at everything in front of me with interest. He didn't wear sunglasses, the pair of eyes on the sky, like a pool of dark blue lakes, constantly reflecting everything on the ancient trees. In his eyes, it seemed like countless stars flowed. What did you see? The old voice remembered from the ancient tree. A short old man sat cross-legged on the root of the ancient tree. The wrinkles on his face were like annual rings, entwined one upon another, and there were countless mottled age spots on his face. He opened his eyes, but in his eyes, there were no eyes, only a deep void. Obviously both eyes were gouged out, but for some reason, Gojo still felt that countless pairs of eyes were watching his every move. This weird feeling came from the old man who seemed to be close to decay. I saw it, infinite. Gojo Satoru casually threw the pastry into his mouth, with his hands supporting the ground behind him, with a smile at the corners of his mouth, looking at the ancient wood in front of him, as if watching an extraordinary performance. In the eyes of heaven, everything was seen by him. So thorough. Is the person who sees through everything the strongest person, and the most boring person? Hearing Gojo Satoru's answer, the old man nodded in satisfaction, with a smile on his face. Faced with the best genius of the Gojo family for thousands of years, and mastering the six-eyed Gojo Satoru, who has only appeared twice in the entire generations, even if he is picky as an old man, he can't help but feel a bit proud. Very well, Wu, you are the next person in charge of the family. This warship that has been sailing in the torrent of history for thousands of years, you will be the only helm. Your talent and strength will bring you the Gojo's family will move towards glory. Grandpa, it's good to be happy. To be honest, I have no interest in running the family. Gojo Satoru shrugged his shoulders helplessly. If other children talked to the old man like this, the family law would have served him a long time ago. But in the face of Gojo Satoru, the old man ignored his frivolous attitude and continued to speak for himself. Xiao Wu, the Kamo family has proposed to reopen the prince test. The Zenin family has agreed to it. I want to know your attitude, because if you want to do it, this competition will be a well-deserved crush. Chapter 40. For this kind of thing, Grandpa, you can be the master. I don't care, cursed spirit or jujutsu teacher, I am the strongest. Gojo Satoru doesn't care who his opponent is or how strong he is. He is invincible. No one has ever doubted this. The old man seemed more satisfied when he heard Gojo's words. The wrinkled old face bloomed like chrysanthemums in full bloom, smiling at Gojo Satoru. The prince test is the eternal pain in the hearts of Gojo and Zenin. The patriarch of the Gojo family of that generation, Tianzong talent, was the same as Gojo Satoru. He not only possessed six eyes, but also mastered the unlimited technique. The Gojo family should have burst out of unparalleled brilliance in the hands of the patriarch of that generation. But what I did not expect is, the Zenin patriarch of that generation was also a first-class genius. The battle lasted for 3 full days, and no one could repeat the process of the battle, because those who had witnessed the battle had already died in the aftermath of the battle. Until everyone reappears on the battlefield. I only saw the 2 men who looked like demon gods. Even if they died in battle, they still refused to fall, one holding the flag of the Zenin family, and the other wearing the clan emblem of the Gojo family. Standing in the center of the ring. Even if the body died away, the curse power of that body still lingered on the entire battlefield. The original big arena, known as the most prosperous arena in Tokyo, the arena that cost countless craftsmen's hard work, completely collapsed under the battle that was almost a natural disaster. The wall made of black stainless steel, which is known as indestructible, was affected by the battle between the two, leaving only one ruined wall. At the center of the arena, the meteorite that fell from the sky was shattered like a baby's toy. Except for the arena in the center of the battlefield, whether it is the auditorium or Optimus Prime, it is completely destroyed by the unimaginable force. And the reason why the ring can exist to the end. Because of one of the most important rules of the imperial contest is that those who fall out of the ring lose. These 2 proud and godlike men never stepped out of the ring until they died in battle. Both the Zenin family and the Gojo family were almost withered due to this sudden change. If it weren't for the fact that the trump cards were still hidden in the family, they would have been eliminated in this historical torrent. It was also after that, Gojos and Zenins. The times are enemies. Open and dark fights continue, and there are countless lives and deaths. If it weren't for Kamo's reconciliation, the Gojo family and Zenin family have been at full-scale war long ago. Although now in the present society, it is different from the former warring states period, but the battle between the 2 big families has never stopped. Now the Kamo family, which has always been reconciled from the middle, actually proposed to re-host a prince test. Now that the Zenin family has agreed, it is naturally impossible for the Gojo family to quit. What's more, the current Gojo home is in full swing. Gojo Satoru's growth rate is almost far faster than the generation of patriarchs with 6 eyes. Such strength is almost invincible among the younger generation. Xiao Wu, among the younger generation, no one should be your opponent. The old man stroked his long beard and his face was kind. But Gojo narrowed his eyes after saying this, and a lazy figure suddenly appeared in front of him, with a smile unconsciously at the corner of his mouth. Young generation. It doesn't matter which generation is, it will be a boring contest without even thinking about it. But if that guy also comes to participate, it might become more interesting. Hearing this, the elder, who is very old and fine, frowned slightly. You found an opponent that is enough to fight you. Haha, of course, standing alone on the top of the mountain should be so boring, it's fun. Gojo Satoru closed his eyes and looked at the infinite sky in a hug pose. A word came up inexplicably in his heart. Heaven and earth. I am the only one. The old man felt the spirited Gojo and didn't say much, but after Ji Yumu, a few figures quietly left, like a ghost. Someone in a family is the face and the other is the inside. When you do what you have to want to do with face, Lizzie will always do it, and quietly. Passing down from the inside and out, is the way of life that the Gojo family can pass down to this day. Even with such a peerless genius as Gojo Satoru, it must not be taken lightly. The shame of the past is still kept in mind by the old man, and he must not allow Gojo Satoru to have any more accidents. Even if you give everything for it. Kamo's house, what are you hiding behind that hypocritical skin? Is the fox tail finally showing up? Zenin and Gojo, the biggest beneficiaries of both losses, are they really that great? The old man stroked the towering ancient tree next to him, as soft as he was caressing his own child. The wind is still blowing in the atrium, and the wind chimes are still ringing crisply. Gojo Satoru looked at the sky thoughtfully. Everything is so small in the eyes of the sky. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.